drugs and drugs and drugs and drugs and sex and sex and sex and sex and house, 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 drugs and drugs and house, 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 drugs and drugs and house, 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 drugs and drugs and house, house, drugs and drugs and sex and drugs and house, 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 drugs and drugs and sex and drugs and house. Sex and drugs and how, drugs and drugs and drugs and how. House, house, drugs and drugs and house, 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 drugs and drugs and house, 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 drugs and drugs and house, drugs and drugs and sex and drugs and house, sex and drugs and house, sex and drugs and house, sex drugs, sex drugs, sex drugs, sex and drugs and house, sex and drugs and house, sex and drugs and house. Drugs and 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 sex and drugs and house, 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 house.